earlier today, the announcement of the sacking of the UK's first black Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwesi Kwarteng, reverberated around the world. It was shocking, but not surprising, because many saw it coming.
I met the former Chancellor earlier today. I was incredibly sorry to lose him. He is a great friend, and he shares my vision to set this country on the path to growth. Today, I have asked Jeremy Hunt to become the new Chancellor. He's one of the most experienced and widely respected government ministers and parliamentarians, and he shares my convictions and ambitions for our country.
So, British Prime Minister Liz Truss fired her good friend Kwesi Kwarteng, ultimately for taking decisions that hurt the UK economy. He supervised the implementation of the biggest UK tax cuts in decades, which caused the pound to plummet, which then aggravated the British people, hence his party's decision to let him go. Now, Kwesi Kwarteng is the equivalent of our Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. In fact, in this picture, you see them sitting side by side at one of the global financial meetings. So the conversation that has naturally come up in the wake of Kwesi Kwarteng's dismissal for mismanaging the UK economy is that the same rule should apply to our finance minister. In fact, this is not the first time calls for Mr. Ofori-Atta's sacking has come up. Since the middle of this year, several economic experts, as well as members of the general public, and of course the governing party's political opponents, have long called for his sacking.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, I don't know whether he has any respect for the word credibility and its value and what you do with, including the Honorable Minister of Finance. They would have done what is needful. I doubt if they can correct their mess. So they better start packing to get out of office.
But of course, the minister insists he cannot go, as that would amount to a father abandoning his children.
That's not a very good question. You know, it's almost like telling a father to resign from his children because he's changed his mind. You know, there are times that decisions have to be made for the survival of a country, and therefore, if circumstances such as COVID or Ukraine war occur, which are not typical, it does change the environment.
But, of course, what else would you expect him to say? He has the backing of the president, who is convinced Mr. Ofori-Atta has what it takes to turn the fortunes of the country around. But what they fail to realize is that not many people are fortunate to have time on their side as they grapple with the impact of the harsh economic climate. On top of the high debt levels we are confronted with, inflation is at an all-time high in 2 decades at 37.2%. What this means, in simple terms, is that if you had 100 cedis at the beginning of the year, yes, in January 2022, the value of that same money can buy you less goods. By now, you know that the Ghana cedi hit 11 to the dollar mark within just a week. So within a week, it has lost more than 6% value to the dollar. So imagine all the importers and traders who have to exchange cedis with dollars to purchase items to sell. To cushion themselves, what they do is they pass the cost down to the consumer. Imagine buying a small bag of rice at 100 cedis last week, only for the price to change when you return to your neighborhood shop or market the next week. That's how dire the situation is. It's affecting people's purchasing power. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, brace yourself, because fuel prices are set to go up. Oh yes, and we all know what a rippling effect that has. So we are all feeling the pinch every day. And guess what? In all of this, salaries haven't changed much. A lot of people are still depending on their existing incomes in this current economic climate. And it will get worse. The finance minister himself says so. After we secure a program with the IMF, government will roll out some austerity measures to set the economy back on track. So it will get worse. There are those who argue that there's no point in crying over spilt milk or looking back. Well, that's true to some extent. But as a popular saying goes, sometimes you have to look back to move forward. So here's a reminder to the managers of our economy as they look forward to turning around our fortunes.
Patients are suffering, students are suffering, traders are suffering, pensioners are suffering, drivers are suffering, contractors are suffering, civil servants are suffering, and farmers are suffering. Fishermen are suffering, and industries are suffering. Artisans are suffering, and kayaye are suffering. The disabled are suffering, and men are suffering. Women are suffering, and children and Ghanaians as a whole